Liberal, conservative, socialist, capitalist. You hear these words thrown around constantly, right? On the news, all over social media, maybe even across the dinner table. But what do they actually mean? So often, they're just used as insults to shut down a conversation, not as tools to actually understand something. So in this explainer, we're going to cut through all that noise and get some real clarity.
And that quote just nails it, doesn't it? That's exactly the problem. Someone spits out the word liberal and they mean soft. Someone else yells conservative and they mean stuck in the past. These powerful words are used more like weapons than ideas. They're just splattered around without any real thought. And that's the big question we're here to answer. We're going to peel back the layers of confusion to get to the core ideas. You know, where they came from, what they stand for, and how they all fit together.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll tackle why these labels are so darn confusing. Then, we'll define 3 major political visions. After that, we'll look at capitalism, which is in a category all its own. Then, we'll map out how they all connect. And finally, we'll get into why any of this actually matters for the debates we're having today.
All right, let's dive into part 1, the problem with labels. To really get a handle on these terms, we have to push past the insults and see them for what they are, ideas with long, complicated histories.
Okay, so this is probably the single most important point to get right off the bat. We are not comparing apples to apples here. Liberal, conservative, and socialist, those are political ideologies. They're big picture visions for how a society ought to run. Capitalism, though, that's an economic system. It's the engine, not the driver's manual. Getting that distinction is the key that unlocks everything else. So, with that key distinction in mind, let's get into section 2, the 3 political visions. We're going to break down liberalism, conservatism, and socialism one by one. First up, liberalism. Historically, this idea was revolutionary. It rose up to challenge the absolute, unchecked power of kings and the church. At its core, liberalism is really trying to answer a huge question. How do we protect the individual from being crushed by power? And the answer it came up with was a society built on basic rights, equality under the law, and a government that has the consent of the people it governs. And what's so interesting is how all these values lock together. For liberals, individual liberty is the ultimate goal, and things like democracy and the rule of law are the best systems we've found to protect it. It ensures no one is above the law and that every person has the freedom to chart their own course in life. That focus on the individual, that's the bedrock of liberal thought. So, if you're looking at the world through a liberal lens, you generally see society as a work in progress. The basic structure is sound, but it always needs tweaking and reforming to be more fair, more just, and more inclusive. For example, a modern liberal might say that for an individual to be truly free, they need access to things like education and healthcare, and that might require the government to step in and regulate the market to make sure that happens. Okay, next up, conservatism. Now, if liberalism starts with the individual, conservatism starts with the community, with society. It asks a totally different question. How do we preserve the fragile social order that keeps us from descending into chaos? The core idea here is that society is a complex, delicate thing, built up over generations, and you mess with it at your own peril.
This really highlights what conservatives want to, conserve. They put a huge emphasis on the stabilizing force of tradition, on institutions like the family and local community, and on the security that comes from law and order. For a conservative, change isn't always bad, no, but it has to be slow, careful, and organic, so you don't accidentally pull out a thread that causes the whole thing to unravel.
This phrase just perfectly captures that mindset. The first question isn't, how can we make things new? It's, what are we risking if we tear down what's old? It's a viewpoint that's deeply rooted in caution and a real respect for the accumulated wisdom of the past.
And that brings us to our third political vision, socialism. Now, this ideology starts from a completely different place. It starts with a critique of the economy. It asks a really pointed question. How can anyone be truly free when there are massive gaps between the rich and the poor? So its main goal is to organize society around the good of the collective, not just the profit of the individual.
So, what does that look like in the real world? Well, socialists are going to push for policies that aim for economic justice. We're talking about things like robust public services. Think universal health care or tuition-free college, strong protections for workers, and redistributing wealth through taxes to make sure everyone's basic needs are met. It's all about the welfare of the whole group. Now, this is a really, really important distinction to make. You'll hear the term social democrat a lot. They might agree with a lot of socialist goals, but they believe you can get there by taming capitalism. Think of countries in Scandinavia. They have a market economy, but they also have high taxes to fund a huge social safety net. A more classic socialist, on the other hand, would argue that capitalism itself, the system of private ownership and profit, is the root of the problem, and it needs to be fundamentally changed or even replaced. And that leads us right into part 3, capitalism. Now, remember what we said at the beginning. This isn't a political vision in the same way. This is the economic engine room. It's the arena where all these political battles are fought. So let's just define it, plain and simple. In a capitalist system, things like factories and companies are owned by private individuals, not the government. Most people work for a wage. Goods and services are bought and sold in a competitive market. And the main goal, the driving force, is the pursuit of profit. And boy, is this system debated. On one hand, supporters will tell you it's the most powerful engine for innovation and wealth creation the world has ever known, and that it's lifted billions of people out of poverty. But on the other hand, critics argue that its relentless focus on profit can lead to the exploitation of workers, create massive inequality, and cause serious harm to the environment.
Okay, so we've defined our political visions and we've defined the economic system. Now comes the really interesting part. In section 4, let's map the overlap and see how all these pieces actually fit together.
This little table makes the relationships pretty clear. A liberal who cares most about individual rights tends to see capitalism as a powerful tool that just needs some rules and regulations to make it work better for everyone. A conservative who values order and tradition often sees free enterprise as a key part of a strong and stable society. And a socialist who's focused on economic equality looks at capitalism and says the basic design is flawed and needs a major overhaul. So the big takeaway here is to stop thinking about politics as a simple, straight line from left to right. It's much more like a map with different territories and overlapping borders. For instance, a liberal and a conservative might both strongly believe in capitalism, but they'll argue endlessly about social issues. A liberal and a socialist might both want more equality, but they'll have very different ideas about how much the government should control the economy. It's complicated.
And that brings us to our final section, why these ideas matter. Because this isn't just some dusty old academic exercise. These ideas are like the hidden DNA inside every single political debate we have today. Just think about it. When you hear people arguing about the cost of healthcare, or the insane price of housing, or student loan debt, they're not just arguing about numbers on a spreadsheet. They're tapping into these deep, fundamental, and often unspoken visions of how the world should work. And
This gets to the absolute heart of it. Are we arguing about things like healthcare as if they're just products to be bought and sold in a marketplace, like a new phone? That's a very pure free market capitalist viewpoint. Or are we arguing that they are fundamental human rights that any decent society has a duty to provide to its citizens? That's a view that leans much more towards socialist or modern liberal thinking. That is the real debate hiding just beneath the surface.
So at the end of the day, remember this. Underneath every label someone gets called is a deeper, more complex vision of the world. A different answer to the biggest questions we can ask. What does it mean to be free? What does a fair society look like? And what do we really owe each other? By understanding these core ideas, we can get past the name calling and start asking much better, much smarter questions. So now that you have the map, what questions will you ask?